We seem to have an echo.
Yes.
I'm going to mute you for now. All right. How is that? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Beyond the Pain live video. I just want to be sure that we have all our channels live and working. We have an echo somewhere. I just want to know where that echo is coming from. Okay, let me just make sure that we share. Then we will take it up from there. This is also a good opportunity for you to share as well. All right. Okay. Then we'll just ensuring that we are where we should be. Okay. Good evening again. Welcome to the special edition of Beyond the Pain. And today I have a very special friend with me. Let me tell you a little story about how Eva and I connected. It was way back in June 2022. A member of our amputee support group shared a story with us that a young lady who has been trying to adjust to amputation went to work, and she was told that she cannot expose her prosthetic limb. That flipped me. Honestly, I was shocked when I heard it. And I decided that I was going to do something about it. So I put up a post. Need to know where this echo is coming from. Okay. All right. So I hope that it will sort itself out so that we don't have an echo throughout. Okay, so let's go on. So I did a post about it, and I said that I'm an amputee and I am very comfortable with my prosthetic limbs, and I need the society to be comfortable with it. So that was exactly what we did. Thank you very much for letting me know that. I'm grateful. Okay, so we did that post, and that same incident inspired the theme for the Feet of Grace Foundation charity work the following year, towards a society that is comfortable with amputees. So, Eva, I'm so happy to have you here with me. And I'm just going to tell a little bit about you to our audience who may not know you. Eva CHUKWUNELO, that I call Ada most of the time, is a Nigerian storyteller, and she is also a disability inclusion advocate. Our practice is rooted in ensuring that disabled bodies are not missing in history. When I read that, it really touched me. Not missing in history. That is so powerful. And she wants these people with disability to be in cultural records, and she wants them to be in public imagination. I 100% agree. And through image making and storytelling, she works to build visual and narrative archives that affirms that disabled persons are are active contributors to culture. Welcome with me, Eva. I'm amazed at the work that she is doing. This month, sorry, is Lib Loss, Lib Difference Awareness Month. And part of the theme for this month is storytelling, empowerment, and community. And so, as a community of people with disability, we want to share our story. And we want you to empower all the women living with missing limbs. So we'll share our stories tonight. And we also want to hear from you. What questions do you have for us? Ultimately, what we want to ensure is that we have a society that is comfortable with people like us, differently abled people like us. So, Eva, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
How did you become an amputee?
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give like the summarized version because it's like a very long story. Okay, so I was diagnosed with osteomyelitis at the age of 9. But it wasn't that acute. So I was just basically doing things, being active. I was a very, very active child, very sporty. And I was just like going on with my life. And because of I don't know if it's a medical issue in Nigeria where they were not able to handle the osteomyelitis, it led to an acute stage where it became severe. So I was always having sores on my left foot, and sometimes these sores would like bleed, and I'll find myself in the hospital most of the time. So it degenerated into gangrene, and you know when a part of your body just gets that gangrene, you know that it's like over for you. So I had to opt for amputation. So I was 17. So I was managing it from age 9 to age 17. So it was at that age 17, I was like, no, 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 no. I was not going to school. I had to drop out of school. It kind of like messed up with my childhood and was eating into my teenage life. So I was like, I don't mind cutting this leg off. Let's just go on. I want to go back to school. I want to go back to my activity. And so I opted for amputation. And that was when I became an amputee in November 2012.
Wow, what a story. So you were 17 years old.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, tell me, Eva, what was the greatest challenge that you had to overcome becoming an amputee?
Okay, so for me it was the challenge of being seen. Now, for every girl, it's not just some girls, for every girl, you know, at that teenage age, like it's the peak. Like you just want to be seen, you want the boys to look at you, all those kind of things. You just want to be seen. And for me, it was at that point where I started hiding. Like I didn't want anybody to see me like this. I didn't want people to see this part of my body. And so I was always hiding. And my greatest fear and challenge was people seeing me and people seeing how I actually am. And so I started hiding. Like I wore long outfits, I wore socks so they don't see the fake leg. I wore hair ties just to because if you use a prosthetic, you know that it shows when you wear a tight outfit. So I always used like a hair tie, put it around my neck and make sure that it covers that part of that silhouette of the prosthetic on my outfit. So I was just always covered. And most people thought probably it's a religious thing. I remember two girls coming to me and they were like, not to offend you, but the way you dress, is it like a religious thing? And I didn't have the courage yet at that point. I was still in the university to like tell people my story. So I was always hiding. Even when I was in the university in my dorm room, most of my roommates didn't know that I used a prosthetic leg because I cover up, go to the bathroom, I bath, dress, come out, enter my bed. I had like this covering my bed. I enter my bed, I dress up, come out. So I was doing that for like 4 years, and most people didn't know that I had an amputation throughout my stay in the university until when I left.
You
So you had to,
fulfilled that for 4 long years.
yes. So I did
Incredible.
that. So most people were, they just had a clue. They were like, okay, you are not working well, because normally, like, they noticed I was like limping, but they didn't know what the issue was. I never told anyone, just those close to me that knew what was up. So I hid it for 4 years. I think it was like the most miserable years of my life, because there's this
Hey.
feeling that comes with pain, and I didn't have that feeling in university. There are some days I sit right now and like I told my sister, I said, if I could just go back to school days now with this kind of confidence I had, I think I would have done so much. But it's all in the past, part of the experience, Sha.
It's like a movie. We need to do a movie of this and let people see. I mean, 4 years, you didn't have a roommate and nobody suspected. I mean, going to the bathroom and all of that. That is really incredible. And you know what that says to me is the mindset that we tend to have, when amputation happens. And I tell people, it's a profound change that takes place in our body. And it's an issue of body image acceptance. And that takes a lot. I'll tell you what happened with me and what made it easy for me to be able to, come to terms with two missing limbs. First, I didn't have an accident. I went to the hospital for something totally different. It was to have a lung transplant. I had lived with this chronic respiratory disease for over 20 years. I was on oxygen supplementation for 7 years. I was on ventilator for 3 whole years. And so when I eventually was called to come and have the lung transplant, I couldn't just wait to see what the next step was going to be. Of course, they had told me that there was going to be a lot of risks, related to the lung transplant. But the things they told me did not happen. And what happened, nobody ever thought that was ever going to happen. So I went in and had a lung transplant. It was exactly 13 years ago, on the 13th of April, 2013. And, they wheeled me in. They did the surgery, they replaced the diseased lung, put the new one inside, and then my body started fighting. So they had to put me into induced coma. And I was in coma for about 5 weeks. But it's apparently while I was in coma, the doctors told my husband that we were going through, we were having a lot of challenges, complications, and it got to a point that it actually told me that both my hands and both my legs would have to be amputated to save my life. And of course, he said to them, no. If I wake up, we'll make that decision together. If I don't, then I can go home with my legs. I did wake up. And then they told me that I had very strong lungs. And then the next thing they told me was that they will have to amputate both hands and legs. This is me. I was 46 going 47. I have lived 46 and a half years with 2 legs. And of course, because of all that I had gone through with my health, I was happy to have the lungs, but the other part of it was just way too much for me to bear. And so that took a while. Of course, I knew I had to submit to it, and both legs were amputated. So it wasn't just one leg, it was the 2 below the knees. And for weeks, I couldn't look at that space. when I go for the in the hospital there, when the nurses come to dress the storms, they would tell me, "Oh, it's healing so beautifully. You have beautiful storms. Your storms are doing so beautifully. They want people to come and look at it, other students to come and look at it and see how well my storms has healed. They have never seen storms that healed so fast and so well. I didn't go back to the theater at any time again, not for an infection, not for reamputation, nothing. Everything healed so fast. So for them, I had beautiful storms. For me, I couldn't imagine how I was going to touch it. But you know what helped me the most was my husband, who actually first touched it. When every night in the hospital, the nurses will come and wrap it up, massage it and wrap it up, and then they will go every night before I sleep. And usually my husband and my two sons were there. And then after about how many weeks of them doing that, one night they came, a couple of weeks of doing that, they came, and my husband took the ointment from them and did the massage and then wrapped it. The following night, my son took it over from the nurses and did it. And then the second night, my second son did the same thing. And I was watching their faces intently. I was watching to see if they were going to cringe, if they're going to be, they did not cringe. They were not uncomfortable. And I'm asking myself, how could they even touch it when I couldn't touch it? It was incredible. But, just seeing that somebody else could touch it, my family could touch it and we're not cringing. That really helped me to get to the point where I could touch it and start beginning to look at that space and see if something has changed. And I need to be able to redefine my new normal. So that was how I began that journey of coming to terms with missing links.
Wow. I don't know, but I think for that touching of storm, I think for me it was my cousin's kids.
Yeah.
Yes, like when they said they're like, okay, they were like curious and they're always like squeezing it, they're always playing with it. So I think for me it's just kids. It's kids for me.
Support is so necessary, and that tells me that people with missing limbs, people who have to undergo amputation, first and foremost, the family understanding and having a family support with them makes a whole lot of difference. I want to believe that that is also the experience of others. And that's one of the things that we do. That's one of the things that we do in the amputee support groups. We encourage the parents, the family, to be a part of what is happening. We encourage them to be to them. Disability is not the end of the world. Disability, there's such a life beyond disability. Look at you, look at me. So tell me, remember the experience that I shared with you earlier that got us connected? Let me ask you this question. How do you feel today about that experience?
Sorry, I didn't hear you, ma.
Remember that experience you heard that they said they were not comfortable with you?
Yes, yes.
What do you think about that experience now?
I don't even think about it sometimes because like I'm out of that space. But I felt like maybe I should give my boss then grace. Probably he has never seen something like that. So I felt what I should have done was to sit him down and like lecture him on the amputation and the body of an amputee. I just felt like I would have lectured him more. But also, as much as I gave grace to him, I also felt like there is how you relate to people and there's how you make people feel in their bodies, especially when the body is different from yours or when it's not as per societal standards, is how you make people feel comfortable in spaces. And that is something that he should have had as a leader. I think as a leader, that's one thing you should have, because you would not have the same kind of people in your team. You would have different kinds of people in your team, and you should be able to accommodate differences. So there are days when I've not had that experience since then, that kind of experience since then. Probably it's because of how I carry myself into spaces and how I don't allow what people say about my body affects me. So I've not had that experience to my face. Maybe it's happening my behind me, but to my face, I don't have anybody trying to tell me, "Oh, your body's like this. Get out." I'm too stubborn for that now.
With you, honestly, we need to be stubborn with that. I think first and foremost, we do accept that there is a change in body image, and we need first and foremost to like ourselves. And the way we carry ourselves make a whole load of difference. Like I said to people, if I walk into a space now, the way I walk into that space, the way I carry myself, you will be hard pressed to put me down. Not that it doesn't happen. It has happened like it did in the airport where I was really treated with indignity and disrespect. But it was not on me. It was not because I was already carrying myself in a way that is feeling sorry for myself. Like I tell people, I don't do pity party. All right. And I think that, and I don't go to anybody's pity party because pity does not help us. What amputees need is support, not pity. So, Eva, what would you say to young ladies today who, somebody who has just recently lost a limb, a young lady, what would you say to her?
Okay, so I didn't hear you, ma, but are you saying what I would say to somebody who had just lost
Yeah,
their limb?
exactly. A
Okay,
young
okay.
lady, especially, given your experience.
Okay. Hmm. I think so. For women, I think losing a part of the body is very personal. It's very personal because there's how society expects a woman to look like. And when you don't fit into that mold, it would kind of like separate you. And so being someone with a limb loss and being a woman with a limb loss is really tough. And so the first thing I'll tell her is it's not going to be easy because I'm not one of those people that will tell you, oh, it's going to be fine, it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy because there's going to be this constant grief where there are days you will just wake up and you look in the mirror and be like, oh, I hate my body. There are days when you love your body. So it's just like off and on. But my advice would be to come to the point where you accept the reality that this has happened and nothing can change. And how you treat yourself now will determine how other people treat you. So you need to shower yourself with so much love. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of the other parts of your body that is still surviving. You need to take care of your relationships around you, the people around you, community, connect with people and find the people that actually are intentional about you. For me, community is very important. It doesn't have to be an amputee community, just community of people that are intentional of your well-being. It could be your friends, your family, or a stranger you meet on the road could just be like community to you. But surround yourself with people. Don't live in isolation and try to be someone who brings value to a room. I'm someone who loves excellence. And I feel like if you're excellent enough, people will just gravitate towards you. There's just going to be this magnetic force dragging them to you because you have so much to offer and they want to tap on that. And it's not because of your sad or disabled, but it's because there's so much they have to get from you that they do not have and they want to get from you. So heal, that accept your reality, don't live in isolation, connect with people, and then do things in excellence. So yeah.
100% agree with you. I think the first thing that you said that really touched me is love yourself. This is the reality. Over the past week, I have been talking about acceptance and beyond the pain. Acceptance is not saying that it didn't happen or denying it. It is, as you know, taking hold of the reality and deciding that, look, I'm going to make something with my current reality. And that starts first with loving myself, loving ourselves, because yes, there is missing limbs, but disability is not 100% the totality of me. That is just a part of my life, right? It's just a part of my life. It's not the totality of who I am. I still have all my mental faculties intact. And so every time that I think about that, acceptance, it starts with loving myself, even if nobody else does. That's one part. Second thing that you said that really touched me is bringing value. I believe that people with disabilities can live. Finding some comments about not hearing us. My volume audio is full. All right, so all right, we're trying our best to work on the sound, and I don't know where you're. What is happening? Oh my goodness! All right, trying to find some logistics within. All right, but you can hear me very well, Eva, right?
Oh, my network is bad. Like your voice is breaking. So
Oh dear. Okay. All right. Let's go on. Hopefully they can hear
yeah.
us. I think my mic is on maximum on IG. All right. And also we're trying to avoid the echo. All right. So bring value. Bring value. Missing limbs is not a limitation to living an amazing life. There is still so much left, despite what we have lost. So much more left. We still have our mental faculty, we have our skills, we have our experiences. I mean, I had worked for over 25 years of my life before I lost my limbs. And all of that had to count for something. So I do not stop living because I lost my limbs. I have to find a way around the amputation so that I can keep on living. All right. Tell me, what have you done beyond amputation? I know you are doing incredibly amazing things, but I want you to share it with our audience to prove that we can still bring so much value to the table in spite of disability, in spite of missing limb. Did you hear my question?
No, I didn't get it.
Okay. So I asked you, what are you doing
Okay.
beyond amputation? What have you turned your story into? So that we can show that there is so much value we still bring to the table. Okay.
I didn't hear you again.
Can you hear me
I'm
on
sorry.
IG? All right.
Mm,
Let me pose the question to you again. What have you done with your story?
okay.
I'm not
Okay. Yeah.
muted. What have you done with your
Okay,
story?
so what have I done with my story, right?
Exactly.
Um okay. So I'm not really one that shares my story a lot. I I get bored sharing my story, but just one that uses my presence to make people aware about disability. and I just like finding myself in spaces. It doesn't have to be disability spaces, but any space, whether it's a creative space or a tech space or a leadership space. I just like finding myself in these spaces and appearing in my most authentic self. And that's my kind of advocacy. So people see and they're like curious to know what they're curious to know more about me. And then through that avenue, I get to tell them about disability inclusion and what I'm doing about the whole disability advocacy space. So I feel like when most people see me, I've had people who reach out to me via my DM, and it's always young girls, especially those who have labels and those who have one kind of disability or not. And they always have this feeling of, I don't know how to put myself out there without feeling there's this kind of fear that they feel. And them seeing me doing what I do in my own little way, just showing up and be my most authentic self, is kind of like an inspiration to them. And for me, I love being an inspiration to people who have disabilities. I don't like being an inspiration to people who are not disabled. Sorry, but they are not my target audience. My inspiration, I get that sense of fulfillment when somebody who has felt like they don't belong in a space, or who has felt like they don't fit because of how they look or how they are, when they see me in most in all of my imperfections, showing up in spaces without hiding or without threatening. I love the responses I get from this year that um, I inspire them to, aspire them to show up. I think one of the things that almost made me cry was in New York. For
Voice
I
just left. I just missed your audio.
can you hear me now?
All right. I got that part. Bringing your authentic self. Wow. That in itself is a powerful statement. And I think that that is something that we must encourage every person with disability to have. And it's not necessarily just in disability space. We must be able to bring our authentic self into every space that we are. Being able to bring myself into every other work that I do. For example, I'm a trauma transformational coach. I don't talk about disability in that space, but I am a person with disability transacting in that space. And every person can transact in different spheres of life as a person with disability. Yes, I run a foundation that addresses issues of disability, issues of missing limbs. But the most important thing that I think that I'm taking away from what you have said is that we bring everything that we have, our skills, our expertise, our talents, our giftings. We bring it into every space we go, even as a person with disability. And I think being able to do that, we can show and prove to the world that there is no space where we cannot transact efficiently and effectively. What are your thoughts on that? How we can make a difference wherever we are, despite our disabilities?
Sorry, I can't
Making a
hear
difference.
you. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I
I
can
didn't hear
hear
the
you.
last thing you said. Yeah.
Okay. So I said, what do you think about that? Making a difference in every space we are, despite disability. So that disability is no longer a limitation, so that missing link is no longer a limitation. Okay, you didn't hear me. I wonder if every other person is hearing me. Okay. All right. You have left IG, so I think we're going to just leave IG for now. It looks as if the connection is not doing so good. But can you hear me here on the other channels? Can you hear me?
Hello, ma.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Can you still hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. We seem to be having some technical challenges. Eva, can you hear me here? YouTube is fine. All right. Okay. So we're going to stop IG. We seem to be having some technical challenges on IG, and we're still having our conversation. I'll ask you to join us on YouTube or on Irene Olumese Facebook page so that we'll continue the conversation there. There seems to be some technical problems that we're having on Instagram. So Eva, can you still hear me here?
Yeah, I can hear you here, ma.
Okay. So we'll continue our conversation here on StreamYard. Okay, let me see. All right. So the question I asked is that how can we, as people with disability, keep on making impact in every space we find ourselves despite missing limbs? So that missing limbs does not become a limitation. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we make impact?
Yeah.
So in one of my videos where I interviewed someone with a limb loss, so I asked her what impact meant to her. And she was like,
good question.
It was just her. She said it's her being very diligent in her job and being able to inspire people who are looking up to her. And that's impact that she doesn't necessarily have to have an NGO. She's not really freaked out with the whole disability space and everything.
Yes.
And for me, I feel like you can make impact by just one living your life to the fullest, like in your most authentic self. Don't hide. When you hide, you will not be able to connect to people that you want to impact. So you need to show up. You need to come out from your comfort zone first. Then you also need to be able to contribute to spaces. So I think one thing I'm very, very grateful for is the privilege that I had to education, because for me, education is something that kind of like leveled me up to an extent, because with education, I know about different things, different subject matter. I might not know them in depthly, but I know them to an extent. I can find myself in a space talk about tech. I can talk about tech to an extent. I can talk about creative economy to an extent. I can talk about leadership. So it doesn't have to be in the disability space. I always tell people that one mistake we make is we are always preaching to the choir disability events for disabled people to talk about disability, and it's kind of like not making the impact we need. So I feel like we need to spread out, like find yourself in different spaces. As a disabled person, I can be a thought leader in creative economy, and I can impact people's life. It doesn't have to be me impacting the life of a person with a disability. I can tell somebody without a disability what they need to know about the creative economy from my perspective as someone with a disability. And I think that's what makes every conversation grounded. You get being in different spaces. If I'm a person with a disability who knows so much about tech, I know most of them. Talk to people in tech conference. You don't have to always be in disability spaces. I think that's the mistake we're always making. Always finding ourselves in disability spaces. Spread out, find yourself in different spaces, impact people. You don't need to impact people with disability. You need to even impact people who don't have disability. And it's this man, Pastor Nick Bus. I don't let me not his name. Pastor Nick.
Visuvic,
Yes. So he's somebody who has no limbs at all. I even have my hands. He doesn't have his hands. He doesn't have his legs. But he impacts even people without disability. And I think that is something that makes him stand out, because his impact is broad. disabled community, the
Yes.
non-disabled community, I bring something that you don't have and something that you need, and I'll give it to
Yes.
you. And I think that's impactful.
Wonderful. What I'm hearing you say, Ever, is that we need to spread our wings and be everywhere every other human being can be. And do the best, be the best we can be in that space as well, despite disability. And therefore, we can show up that if an able-bodied person is doing it excellently, and a differently able-bodied person is also doing it excellently, then there is no reason why we should be excluded. There is no reason why I cannot hold a position that, a high level, a C-suite position, if I can deliver the same way with somebody who is differently able. What we are basically asking for is that, yes, we may need some support. What do I mean by support? Making our environment disability friendly. I mean, how would I be able to get into an office that is on the 10th floor if there is no lift working? Or how do you go into an office and there is no disability friendly bathroom in that office? So those are, I think, the things we need to address. There is no space where we cannot occupy. We just need to be sure that that space is comfortable for us. And nobody is going to say that for us except we speak it out ourselves. So that again becomes our responsibility as persons with disability to be able to say out there what we are capable of doing and what changes we need to have happen so that we can give the very best of ourselves to the society. And that is really, on the long term, my own dream. Yes, I do run a foundation, a charity foundation that provides prosthetic limbs. But beyond prosthetic limbs, we are training women in entrepreneurship. We are giving vocational skills. Last year, we trained 27 women and equipped them. And that's what I want to see. Women with these missing limbs thriving in business area, being great entrepreneurs, and then making a difference in every sphere where we are. All right. So, what questions are bubbling in your mind that you would like to ask before we see what questions are on the social media?
Okay, so I don't really have much. One question I like asking women um
Yes.
is mostly around how they are able, since you're someone who is, you're a wife and you're a mother, and I always
Yeah.
ask questions to
Yeah.
people who have lived loss. And so my question is, how do you juggle the whole responsibility? Because I know how I don't know experience wise, but I've seen how heavy motherhood is. It's like a heavy word. And then being a wife is a heavy thing too. So like carrying it, then now having a disability, how do you juggle everything together? So it's just something that messes up my mind.
Well, I think the first thing first for me was that I was not dealing with disability when I was raising my children, but I was dealing with chronic diseases, which was actually debilitating. And it took a lot out of me. At the beginning, I was working full time as a professional with an international organization. I was raising two boys in foreign land, and I was dealing with these medical challenges that kept me in and out of the hospital. And of course, I also have to be wife, first and foremost, above all else. So at one
Yeah.
point, I had to decide to let my career be on the back seat. I stepped out of a high flying job when I was already at management level so that I could give attention to my sons while taking care of my health. And it's a sacrifice that I don't regret because it really bonded my children and I. And what I can say is that my sons matured through the process. They watched me struggling with my health and still making an effort. Making an effort to be at their school activities, making an effort to cook. I mean, it took almost when I could no longer stand up by myself to let go of my kitchen. I didn't want anybody to come into, to support, to cook or anything. I wanted to do it by myself. But also training my sons to be able to cook. So my first son can cook anything. There's nothing he can cook because he learned like that. So that was one part of it. And that was why that by the time I actually now had a disability, my sons were already familiar. My husband was already familiar because we were doing everything together as a family. And really, family support really matters. Of course, after I lost my legs and recovered, I wanted back my career, but not what I used to do. I had been away from that space for so long, but I still have all the skill sets. And that was why I wanted to translate those skill sets into something else. That's why I set up the foundation. But everywhere I go to speak, people are also asking me about overcoming their own trauma. And so I went to train as a trauma and transformational coach. We took about 3 years to do. But I was still parenting adult children. You never stop being a parent. I think one thing that I would say was that I did not sit back and wait for people to do things for me. They saw me making the effort. They are always asking. I mean, my son will always say, "Mommy, lean on me. Let me help you up the staircase. Why must you try to do everything by yourself?" You know, that lean on me was really etched in my memory. He was trying to help me. I was really sick. And I still wanted to do it by myself, carry myself. Said, lean on me. And in all of this, I felt that my children were learning how to cope with life challenges by observing how I was coping. But the one thing that I refused to neglect was my marriage. I know I need to show up in my marriage irrespective of everything that was going on. My husband married me full-bodied. I became a person with disability. It has not changed the way he interacted with me, the way he became actually my primary caregiver. And so for me, working on our marriage, keeping our marriage vibrant was an absolute essentiality for me. And because both of us, we also do marriage counseling and, we like to mentor young couples. So we also needed to show up in our own marriages. Were we having challenges? Of course, when he is taking care of me. There are days when he had to cook. I mean, before I had the transplant, he will make breakfast and go to work, come back in the afternoon to ensure that I eat, come back in the evening and then cook dinner. That was when I realized that I was not being fair on my family to allow help. I wanted to be superwoman. And I knew that being a superwoman was putting so much pressure on my husband and on my sons. I mean, the boys need to be able to come back from school and find cooked food and not have to wait for their dad. And that was where eventually allowed help. And I think the lesson learned from me is that disability, yes, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, but I need support. And to be able to ask for help when I needed to. And when I eventually opened the door and allowed people to help me, look, I almost hit myself that why did I wait for so long? Because this group of women in my church, 3 women, Nigerian women in my church just came together, and every Thursday they will come to my home, they will go to shop, they will do grocery, come and cook for 1 week. And that help really made a difference. It meant that I could rest and I could be in a good place to be present for my children and for my husband. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it's perfect.
So, being a person with disability does not stop us from being a good wife, an attentive and present wife.
I'm just thinking of the whole stress, but I understand.
you need another, we need our spouses to be understanding.
Mm.
And I know that that is one of the biggest challenges some of the women may have. I mean, one day I asked my husband, I said, look, if you knew that things were going to turn out this way, would you still have married me? If you knew at the beginning, the day you proposed to me in 1990, and God gave you a
Uh,
vision of what was going to happen, would you still have proposed to me? And he looked at me as if, okay, this thing is getting to your head right now. After all, our vow says for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. And how then, when sickness comes, then something changes in our relationship. It
mm.
means that we are not taking our vows seriously. And I'm not going to say that it is a walk in the park. It's no, but it is a commitment. Marriage is a commitment. And it's something that we all keep working at to keep our marriages vibrant and alive and well, despite all the challenges that we've had to go through together. For us, it's going through it together. All right.
Okay.
Do we have any questions from our listeners? What would you like to ask? Um, what would you like to ask Eva? What would you like to ask me about life beyond amputation? You've heard our stories. You've heard how we have been able to manage our lives despite missing limbs. What questions do you have, or what is most instructive for you in what you have heard today? While I'm waiting for questions, let me ask you, Eva, what are you passionate about? Tell me, what one thing do you want to be remembered for? One thing that you would like to be remembered for?
Oh, okay. Okay, so for me, I want to be remembered. Uh, ah, so there's this thing I'm doing like around the whole archival justice and history and representation. And I was just
Yeah.
having I'm someone who talks to myself a lot. And so I asked myself this question one day, like how would I want to impact people's lives so much that they would have something to remember me for. And for me, I
Yeah.
want people to remember me as someone who created a system for them that works. Um, I have so many ideas. Like I'm always like my head is
Yes,
always
yes, yes.
churning with ideas, and I just want to be someone who builds something that has not been in place for persons with disabilities. So if you had
Yeah.
asked me before disability, I don't think I would have seen with this regards. But living in that system, living in that experience, I want to build like a system that shows the stories. For me, it's about stories, but I want representation of persons with
The
disabilities. I want
stories. Yeah.
say in the next 200 years, I was talking about it in my TEDx talk. In the next 200 years, if the Lord Jesus doesn't come, there's going to be persons with disabilities, and I don't
Yes.
want them to be in the same shoe that I found myself in.
Yeah.
And so I want to build a system where they can get into any space and they see a representation of themselves. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if this person can do it, I can do it because it's something I didn't find. And I want other people
Exactly.
that come in after me to find
Mm.
themselves in people that had done so much in politics or in creative spaces or in tech. I just want
Yeah.
these stories to live, and I want people to see these stories and to have that hope that it can actually be something. So yeah, that's
Wow. So basically, we're saying that we don't want our stories to be hidden. We
yeah,
want our stories to be visual. We want our
yeah,
stories to live beyond us. And so we want to be able to project our stories, present them in the places where others will continue to be inspired by it. You and I, we're doing our best in the spaces where we have found ourselves. There are more people who are going to come. Unfortunately, we live in a broken world. There are still going to be more and more people who will live with disability. But would they be able to find, people who have come before them and who have done amazing things, and their names are there? That is a great initiative. And honestly, I believe something that we should look for more people to support this kind of initiative. It's something that needs to get wider coverage, because personally, one of my greatest passion is to leave an echo behind that will continue to resound after me. That what I do to touch people's lives will not die with me. That my legacy will continue to be there. People will remember, oh, yes, there was once an Irene Titunola Olumese who passed through this life, despite missing limbs, made a difference, touched lives, and left a legacy that is still speaking after her. That's what you want. And I see that you have the same passion as well. And I want to say that,
Yep.
honestly, there is so much for us to do. We have started, and we're going to be relentless. We're going to be adamant. We're going to be stubborn. We're going to keep banging every door and make sure that they are open to us.
Yeah.
And when we don't get to be given a seat at the table, we will make our own seat and create our own table and fill our own table. What do you think? I think that as many of us that we can bring together to continue to have this conversation, the more difference we can make to our world. It's really been a honor and a joy for me to have this conversation with you tonight. And I think it's been very insightful. And I'm sure that our listeners have picked a few things that you can take away with them. What one more statement or parting words would you like to leave before we wrap it up for tonight?
Um, it would be just be amazing. I don't know, but just be amazed. I don't repeat what I've said, but just be amazed. I just love people who are authentic, and I just feel
Yeah,
like just be your most authentic self.
yeah.
Authenticity always wins anywhere. So just be your
Any
most
day,
authentic self.
anyhow. Authenticity always wins. So be your amazing self. Bring the best of you to every table. Bring the best of you to every space. If you're a person with disability listening to us tonight, what is holding you back from pursuing your passion, from pursuing your dreams? What is holding you back? Because there is a future of possibilities for you if you would just be courageous, be bold to step out and pursue your dreams. You need support? Ask. You never know where help can come from. Don't do this journey alone. One thing that I've learned in life is that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go with someone. That's why we're here to support one another. And for those of you who are able-bodied, I hope that you have been inspired that if disability is not a limitation to living a fulfilling and productive and rich life, then you don't have an excuse. What is holding you back? So, my parting words tonight will be beyond amputation, or beyond whatever adversity or challenging situation that you've had to face, there is a future of possibilities for those who will step out and show up in every space where they have influence. So somebody asked, just as we're wrapping up, that how can I build influence? I mean, confidence. How can I build confidence? So, can we quickly answer that question? How can we build confidence? Somebody wants to know how can we build my confidence?
Okay, so confidence for me, there are two things. I would say love yourself, but love yourself is very cliche. Like everybody says,
Yeah,
love yourself to
yeah,
confidence. But I feel confidence comes when you know what you're capable of doing, and
exactly,
when you're grounded in what you can offer. So if I get
exactly.
into a space, whether
Mm-hmm.
I'm rolling on the ground or whatever I'm doing, as long as I'm confident, I know that okay, I can teach you about, let's say, business. I can teach you about entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
There's this sense of confidence that comes, like it just comes upon you because you know that this is something that you can
You
say
know,
without,
yeah,
it just comes naturally. So
yeah,
confidence is you building capacity. When you build
exactly.
capacity, even if it's in one thing, whether it's business or whatever, just build capacity
Yeah.
to an instant where you can transfer knowledge or transfer
Mm-hmm.
value.
Mm-hmm.
Confidence
Mm-hmm.
comes from
Mm-hmm.
the ability to transfer value. It doesn't. It's not really like, oh, because I'm fine, I have confidence. There are many people who are perfect, who have complete bodies, and they don't have confidence, and
Confidence,
it's
yeah,
because
yeah,
confidence comes from within. Like I know that in this space, whether they cut my hand or I can't see, that I
yeah.
can communicate with people. I can communicate value. I can communicate whatever good thing that it is they're looking for. So confidence comes from you intentionally wanting to be a person who is exceptional for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
And then when you're exceptional for yourself, then naturally
it can
just comes naturally.
absolutely. So know your onions,
Yes.
build your capacity, and then take that step of faith forward. When you know your onions, you know your subject matter, you know this field, then you can come out with your head high. And anyway, even if I made a mistake, I will get back up again and learn from my mistake, and then I will move on. And so, so to that person who wants to build confidence, what we're saying to you is that be good at what you do. Know everything that you can learn about what you do, and then step out with boldness and let faith over. Thank you so much, Eva, for this time together. I look forward to
Ma.
doing this again with you, and hopefully
Yes.
we have better
Yes. Maybe.
connectivity, and we'll be able to, or maybe one day we actually get inside the same room and we'll have this
Yes.
conversation and share with
Yes, ma.
others. Let's see
Okay.
how that works. Once again, thank you so much, and God bless
Thank
you
you so
real
much.
good. Thank
God
you
bless
very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Then we've come to the end of our conversation, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Um, I hope that something has dropped into your hearts tonight that will help you to go out there and make a difference. Once again, God bless you and good night.
you. Right.